All right, welcome to Tech Failure Tuesday. Nothing's cooperating tonight. I had the camera in time-lapse mode, and then the video light kept falling off. So we'll see if we can get through this for like the fourth try. This past weekend, we got to go to 2 weddings, which was very cool. I had friends that were having their first marriage, and friends that were having their second marriage. For each of them, it was a second. And it was a phenomenal weekend, but got me to thinking about marriage and why is marriage important? Why, for some of you out there, you may be thinking, why the hell would anybody put themselves through this, especially a second time, especially if the first time ended badly and painfully, and what would lead you to feel like you should do that again? For my wife and I, my current wife and I, this is both our second marriages. Whatever the divorce rate, I think, for first marriages is 50%, or at least that's the official statistics. I'm guessing that's actually kind of a lot higher than that. Second marriage, they say around 70-something%. So it's a fair question, like, why the hell would you put yourself through all this if it could so easily end up in pain and suffering? And I have to say that for me, that is a question that my answer is because in marriage, in commitment to another person, you find a richness and a challenge and a joy and a fulfillment and a sort of deep-rooted anchor that I've never felt any other way in my life. My first wife and I were married for 20 years. Made it right to the 20-year mark before it all fell apart. My wife's first marriage was like 15, 16, 18, something like that years. Ugly, nasty divorce, some ugliness during their marriage. Been plenty of ugliness since their divorce. But for me, I knew when I got divorced the first time, once I started to kind of pick myself up, I should say once, for the 900th time, all my friends put me back on my feet after getting knocked flat on my ass. I knew that I didn't want to be bitter. I didn't want to be miserable. I didn't want to carry around bitterness and unhappiness and anger and all that stuff. I knew I wanted to live a joyous, full, amazing life. And I knew I wanted to do that with someone. I was dubious that would happen, but I knew that's what I wanted. And for me, it has everything to do with that sense of fulfillment I was saying, that I was talking about, that sense of being anchored, to having a partner in all of this. There is just no other feeling like it. And I was thinking about for my other friends that it was their second wedding this past weekend. I think it's the same thing for them. They're very strong in their faith, in their Christian faith. That's a big part of it for them. That's not really a factor for us, but one of the great gifts of a second marriage, I think when it's the second marriage for both of you, is that you should do all the work you can. You should do all your work. You should unpack your stuff. You should deal with your trauma, deal with your pain, deal with your anger, your sorrow, all that sadness. I remember early in therapy, when I was going to therapy for myself, not like in a couples therapy, but just for myself after the divorce, I remember kind of this mental picture of looking back over my shoulder and seeing this mountain high stack of luggage and me thinking, oh, that's all my baggage? That's all my shit? Oh, I guess I need to deal with that, huh? And working through that, you need to do that work. But I also firmly believe that there are certain wounds, certain aspects of healing that you cannot do alone. And I truly believe that there are parts of the pain and trauma and all that from my first marriage that only healed when I really committed myself to this amazing woman that I'm married to now. And I think the same is true for her. It is this incredible gift when you've both been through marriages before. It's an incredible gift to be with someone that can see when you're triggered. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the word triggered. It has its, some real downsides to it. But there is an amazing. I do think it's appropriate at times. And I think it's appropriate in this situation. There are times when we would argue or something would come up, or she would say something, or I would do something, or I would say something, and one or the other of us would be triggered by that. But whoever, like if I said something and she was triggered, I could see the source of that wild, that reaction that's far out of proportion to whatever has gone on. If that happened to me, she could see the source of why I'm reacting the way I am. And for each of us, it allows you can offer empathy and compassion and love and patience in a way that you couldn't have before, because you know what your pain is like, you know what your trauma is like, and we know most of, all the negative stuff, all the bad stuff that went in our previous marriages. And so you can see where that overreaction, where that triggered trauma response comes from. And you can say, I see what's happening here. This is not really about me. It's not really about us. It's not really about what we're arguing about. This reaction is a defense mechanism or a self-protection mechanism or a pure on trauma reaction to something that happened in their previous marriage. And that is an incredible gift. It's not a gift that anyone wants to be able to give, because in order to give that gift of understanding, you have to have suffered yourself. But it is an incredible gift to be able to offer that to your partner. So for my friends who got married this past weekend, it was their second marriage for each of them. I hope they're able to give that same gift to each other, that gift of compassion, that gift of understanding, that gift of patience. Which isn't to say that you don't come around, when the dust settles, everybody comes down, everybody's not triggered, everybody's less triggered at least. You can circle back and say, okay, let's talk about what happened. And that is a gift, an incredible, loving gift that my wife gives to me, that I can give to her. I hope my friends can give it to each other. That gift of compassion and understanding and love in the face of overreaction, or in the face of accusation or trauma, whatever. It's an incredible gift, and it takes courage, and it takes some depth of feeling that I think only comes from having been through your own trauma. So for all of you out there, I hope you're able to, whether you've been through trauma yourself, I hope if you haven't done so, that you unpack your stuff and you deal with your issues. But I really hope that if that comes up, you're able to extend that kind of gift to your partner, this person you love, and that you want to see happy, and that you want to see succeed in this world, and you want to build a life together for the rest of your lives. I hope you're able to give that gift, and I hope your partner gives that gift to you. And I hope that if those situations occur, you can then And I often say the only way I know where some of my triggers are is when I bump up against them. It's like stepping on a landmine. You didn't know it was there until it explodes in your face. And then you circle back and you go, okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, first of all, let me apologize for what I said or did, and, in my overreaction to whatever happened. And then, second of all, let me share with you where that came from, and let me figure out where that came from. And hopefully, your partner, if you apologize and offer perspective, if you can frame that in context, hopefully your partner understands and allows you to process that in a way that lets you both be stronger together. So I hope if you're struggling with that kind of thing in your marriage, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever, in your relationship and a partnership with someone you truly love and care about, I hope you're able to find that compassion, find that gift of understanding, find that gift of allowing them to express their trauma, and then help them circle back to it after it's all said and done, and unpack that together and find a way forward together. So more thoughts on marriage, I'm sure, to come. Marriage is a process, it's an adventure, it's a challenge, it's an incredibly joyous pain in the ass. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It is the most fulfilling thing I've done next to being a parent. So I wish you all the best. And if you have any questions, reach out. We'll talk soon.